What's the problem with fixing the future price now using forward contracts? Well, the problem is that you'll get exactly what you want, a fixed price, and sometimes what you thought you wanted was not what you really wanted. Wait, what? So imagine you're a business owner. You import raw materials from abroad and suddenly prices start fluctuating wildly, or the exchange rate swings from one end to the other. Or you might be a borrower, and in a world of high inflation expectations brought about by high oil prices, the borrowing rates start going up. Your costs become unpredictable. What do? Well, you can fix the price now using forwards. In other words, you hedge using forwards. Hedging means ensuring a particular outcome happens, especially to avoid catastrophic losses. In this way, no matter what happens tomorrow, your costs stay predictable. It's simple, right? Well, it depends. This is because hedging via forward contracts, where you fix today the price on a future date, have hidden pitfalls that are mainly behavioral issues. For example, what if oil prices surge beyond $100 per barrel and you fear oil prices going beyond $110 per barrel because at that point your business stops being a going concern? So, you enter a forward contract to buy oil at $109 per barrel. But at maturity, oil prices drop to $90 instead. What do you think will happen? Well, you're stuck buying oil at $109 per barrel, and suddenly your hedge is blamed for all the losses of buying at $109, what is essentially just $90 right now. And this is notwithstanding the fact that your hedge actually worked as planned. You bought at $109 because you fixed the price at $109, and had prices broken beyond $109, you would still buy at $109. The fact that prices fell to $90 and you still had to buy at $109 just says that your hedge worked as planned. It ensured that the outcome would be a price of $109. The forward works. For those who watch our videos on FRAs, you might have seen the same issue arising. If you fix your forward rate at 4%, but the floating rate at maturity is 3%, your hedge at 4% would be blamed. Your detractors would say, why did you enter that FRA? Now we have to borrow at 4% when market rates are just 3%. You're nuts to have entered into that FRA. And look, this is not theoretical. In my previous work, I've seen people regretting fixing at the forward rate. For example, fixing an exchange rate via forwards and then the actual exchange rate at maturity is actually lower than the rate at which they fix and at which they have to buy. So they feel they made a mistake and started regretting the forward contract they got into. In this case, the problem is behavioral in nature. It could be loss aversion, meaning they enter into a forward contract to avoid major losses. So they fix at 4% because they fear borrowing rates going up beyond 4%. Or buying at $109 because they fear oil prices going up to $110 and beyond. And each price above those thresholds feel doubly costly to them. But in the instances above, since the loss did not happen, they swing into another behavioral issue, and that is regret aversion. They now regret entering the forward contract since knowing what they know now, they feel the opportunity cost. And now they think they should not have entered into forward contract in the first place. These are real issues because people deal with people. Boards deal with senior management and senior management deals with those who propose the risk management plans and the mitigants. All of them are real people and all of them subject to these kinds of behavioral issues. Which begs the question, do you really need to hedge in the first place? If the answer is yes, perhaps other questions need to be raised as well. Number one, do you need to hedge 100%? Or is some partial hedge merited? It's for this reason that we will discuss hedge ratios and how to use statistics to determine how much to hedge in this channel. So watch out for that. Number two, do you need to make directional bets, meaning protection against upside prices only? Is volatility your main concern? In this case, you might want to consider options, for example, rather than futures or forwards. And again, we shall discuss options and collars in the future. The fire department analogy. It's like a town deciding it wants a fire truck and a fire department just in case, a major fire happens in the town. So they spend a big chunk of the town's budget on a fire truck, a fire department, and firemen, adding a big expense to their annual budgets. However, no fire happens in the first year, and perhaps not even in the second year. So, was building a fire department worth it therefore? Or should people say that they hope a fire happens next year so that they could use the fire department, or otherwise, they built the fire department for nothing? But clearly, there is value to having a fire department regardless of whether a fire happened or not in the town. Which brings us to the last behavioral issue for today. Mental accounting. Mental accounting appears in hedging when people place gains or losses in separate accounts or buckets, instruments, or strategy, ignoring portfolio-wide impacts. For example, clearly, it's better that no fires happen even when the town spends money building a competent fire department. The overall portfolio consideration is the livability of the town, for example. How is it safe from large, disastrous fires, etc.? Asking if people want to move in there, thus raising the town's tax revenues, etc. And not just focusing on the cost per se of having a fire department and whether or not it's used right now or not. Meaning the fire department account should not be separated from the overall community well-being account and the overall cost-benefits analysis. So what are the lessons here when hedging? Number one, we have to ask, what kind of hedge is required? Directional bets? Partial hedges? What kind of instruments are to be used? Forwards, futures, options, some other instruments? Number two, what are the portfolio considerations? Are we sure we're not experiencing tunnel vision, addressing only the immediate risk and losses rather than the overall big picture? Number three, also quite important, what are the different scenarios that may arise? Is there a good communication plan so that even the top brass knows what exactly are expected given the different scenarios to basically combat the behavioral biases that could confuse the hedging exercise? So going back to the start, the problem with forwards is that you really fix the future price and perhaps fail to consider what happens if the price in the future is below that fixed price. So many people have regretted, rightly or wrongly, doing forwards because of this. And really, sometimes a different kind of hedge is actually needed, not really a full-on forward contract. But if you do decide on using forwards, please consider the repercussions of pricing going against your expectations, especially if the high prices you expected did not materialize and actual market prices are lower than what you fixed at. If you find this discussion useful, please like and subscribe to give the YouTube algorithm something to work on and support the channel. See you next time!